What's going on? What's going on? This your man. I see 219 TV Midwest Connected, man. Cheeks for life. But we talk about all things life. And let's not forget, man, go for me. It is not life insurance. And if you're in these streets, please put some money on your head before somebody else do. If you out here spreading these felonious stories, you know what I'm saying? Not getting your info correct. Cause see over here, man, at 219 TV Midwest Connection, the transition, man. One of the biggest transitions, man, is realizing when some things is out your league, you know what I'm saying? And all of this jail talk about Meech, all of this snitch talk about Meech, you know what I'm saying? I went out and found somebody. See, what they say is you get the plumber to do the plumber. So we went out and got this video. We got these guys from Crime and Entertainment. That's the name of their podcast. Go check them out. You know what I'm saying? You got Pete Rausini, man. He's like, he caught a case. And we finna get to the bottom. We finna get right to it, bro. I ain't finna hold y'all. You know what I'm saying? Him and that's his man. He interviewed him. The guy caught a case in Cali, messing with the cartel, with jailhouse lawyers. So he just broke down the whole MEECH'S case from beginning to end. From beginning to end. And when y'all listen to this, I want y'all to listen, man, and drop something in the comments. They just made us realize what level we really on. How we dick ride somebody, whoever got the money to say something. But anyway, we finna y'all listen to this, man. Y'all listen to this and tell me what y'all think.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. Pete, we very rarely cover the same subject on our podcast. A lot of our podcast is, centered around your background, but you and I done a show on the Big Meech situation involving he and 50 Cent, where people were saying that he cooperated. I thought we laid out a very good episode kind of detailing why that was kind of false. And there was a lot of holes in the narratives that were being shopped around. But there was still a lot of questions in the comments that maybe people still don't get. So we're going to come back for a round two to break down why Meech got out as early as he did, why there was no basis.
And for those asking, why y'all talking about Big Meech like that? Because understand, and those is from the cloth and from the mud, they understand. Those is from the, yes, yeah, that it's not that we glorifying who he is. So let's get that understood. I want people that's in these situations, brothers that's in these streets, people we know in these situations. And then it's about taking the word of somebody, smutting somebody's name, all because somebody with money say go. You feel what I'm saying? I think 50 dropped the ball on this one, and they breaking it down. But I want y'all to hear this, and all my brothers that's in these situations, if listen to what they saying.
So no sort of proof, documented or otherwise, that he cooperated, and a few other things. But first, one of the questions that we seen was, who is this guy? How does he know all this? Give the audience just a brief breakdown of why you're so, you have such a knowledge on the subject matter.
Well, I spent over 2 decades in federal prison. And during that time period, I spent a significant amount of my time not only litigating my own case, but the way I kept my sanity was I was involved in preparing claims on behalf of other prisoners. And I've obtained easily well over 100 sentence reductions for men, utilizing the same amendments that Big Meech did to obtain their relief. Like, this is nothing out of the ordinary. In 2014, Amendment 792 was passed. 46,000 federal prisoners got relief under that amendment.
And who passed that?
The Sentencing Commission. See, in 1987, the federal system changed in that parole was abolished. The Federal Sentencing Commission was put in place, and they promulgated a set of guidelines, which at the time were mandatory and guided the discretion of the judge. And so for a man like Meech, and we have a copy of the sentencing guideline table. I understand you're going to put it up for the viewers.
Yeah.
Meech falls under what's referred to as criminal history category 2. And he had a level 42. And so a level 42 offender with a criminal history category 2 results in a sentencing range of 360 to life. Mm-hmm. So Meech received the low end of the applicable guideline range. That meant there was no cooperation at the earlier sentencing, at his first sentencing.
Right. Him and Southwest, his brother Southwest. And
now he said at the earlier sense when he first caught his case, when he ended up getting 30 years off rip.
They essentially, and people have a misconception about taking a plea deal. Taking a plea deal does not mean you cooperated. Taking a plea deal just means you avoided going to trial and could have possibly gotten life without parole, or, you know, depending on the circumstances, it could be many different variations. But if you take that plea deal, you're pleading guilty, you're avoiding going to trial. And in most cases, you're guaranteeing yourself either maybe a shot at parole in the future, or in some cases, avoiding the death penalty. There's a lot of different reasons to take a plea deal.
Well, there's no parole in the federal system. That was abolished in conjunction with the sentencing guidelines that got passed. However, MEECH'S range was from 360 to life. And the reason why he got the 360 to 30 years, 360 months.
Right.
The reason why he gets the 360 is the judge gave him consideration because he took the plea. Otherwise, he'd have gotten on to life.
Right. And that's essentially, like I said, why they take the plea, because at least you have a chance. Might be.
So bam, there it is. Timeline. He took a plea for his initial case, which was 30 years. Mind you, he did 20 something.
30 years, but at least you got a chance.
Well, yes. And also you have to understand that the government's, the weight of the prosecution was primarily on his brother.
Yes.
And so he had brought a challenge earlier on to try to get the case severed. And the way the government deals with that is they're saying, well, look.
Now I want y'all to hear this when he said the majority of the case was on his brother, Southwest T. So now this points to the loyalty when 50 started calling him a snake and a snitch. This talks to that point.
Let's wait for the evidence to come in at trial. And if it creates a controversy or a conflict between both defendants, where essentially there's two prosecutors attacking Southwest's case, then there's going to be a severance, which meant the government's going to have to present the entire case all over again, which is a 3 or 4 month trial. They're not going to subject the judge to tie up a court for 6 to 8 months, relitigating the same case. So at that point, the judge is already encouraging the parties to find a reasonable settlement.
Yeah.
Since MEECH refused to cooperate, he couldn't get below the 30. So people keep sending in the comments, what about the 5K1 letter? There was never any 5K letter. In order for him to go below the 30, they would have had to have filed the 5K1 letter. Since he
see this now, that to this point right here. Now, on this point, I want them to talk to all of the YouTubers. You feel me? They talking about the YouTubers, us. I ain't gonna say us, but the YouTubers that's out there. Everybody took the 5K situation and ran with it. Oh, we got so we doing this. We in this game doing a lot of hearsay, dick riding. You know what I'm saying? Everybody think, oh, 50 got the money. He right. But my man breaking it down, he said he used to do this 20 years, helping. His resume is sticking in a lot of y'all's. So understand what the man is saying. He's breaking down why the man did snitch.
Very likely could have won, but then you're hanging your brother out to dry to hold the bag for something that he was very much involved with. We're not saying that he wasn't doing what he was accused of, but he knew if he took that, then they both got the same deal and nobody was hanging another one out to dry.
I mean, look, it was a reasonable settlement given the weight of the government's evidence. Because even if you remove the wiretaps, I'm sure they had a whole bunch of people lined up to testify against these guys. Oh, yeah. And so at that particular circumstance, you know, the 30 was the best they were going to possibly do. And keep in mind, he was still a relatively younger guy. You know, you think he got knocked off when he was like 37 years old.
Yeah.
And so in the federal system, you don't do 30, you do 85%. So that means he's going to get down somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 24. Then you take a year off for halfway house. Then you take a year off for drug program. So you start looking at, okay, well, no one wants to do the 23 or 24 years. But on the other hand, it's not a 30 piece, meaning day for day. And so, you know, when we had our last conversation, we were actually planning on speaking about the disarticulation of the Sinaloa cartel as of last summer, when this whole situation with Big Meech popped up. And I hadn't had an opportunity to review the documents, which is why.
Now, this guy dealt with a lot of cartels when he was doing his thing.
I kind of had to qualify my statements and just reason from first principles. But now I've had an opportunity, after we spoke last time, to go and pull all the documents. I've had an opportunity to read the transcripts, analyze the orders, and quite frankly, I have no indication whatsoever that Big Meech cooperated.
That's a lot in the comments. That's what you see, because I don't think the masses understand the way charges are, the way the guidelines were, and why you can get time off. And a lot of people don't even realize that he's not free. Currently, he's out, but he's not free. He's in a halfway house, right?
He is in prison until next January. The last year of your sentence prior to the First Step Act was served at home. It's called community confinement. You do part of it at the halfway house, then you transition to home confinement. He received an extended halfway house placement because of the First Step Act. So he has more than 1 year, plus he got an additional year taken off under the FSA. So, of course, these weren't factors that contemplated his decision-making back in 2008 because none of this had happened yet.
People keep thinking the FSA Act, and who did that? Was that Trump?
That was Trump who signed that into law in December of 2018.
So people...
And FSA and the FSA Act, for those that know the FSA Act, shout to my man Duke. That's what Duke got out on, you know what I'm saying? And at the FSA Act 2018, a lot of them got Duke, Harry O, a lot of them got freed on that before the election. So they you know, but let's continue. That's another subject, but you know.
People keep confusing the FSA Act that Trump signed in as to why he got that sentence reduction to begin with, but that's not even the case. Am I correct? That was the guidelines that was being...
He received 2 sentence reductions. Well, he received technically 2 modifications of his sentences under the sentencing guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Then he received a 3rd year off, a 3rd reduction resulting in 1 year off under the First Step Act and extended halfway house placement,
mm-hmm.
which is why he ended up with like a 16-month placement. They actually shorted him. He's in a circumstance so similar to mine. Like I'm owed 15 months. And so absent the FSA, I wouldn't have gotten released until next month.
Right.
Whereas I signed my halfway house papers in January of 23. And so there was an extended period because of the FSA credits towards application on the halfway house. So he's already gotten a benefit larger than the 1 year. And so everything is consistent with a non-cooperation resolution. And, you know, what people fail.
What he's saying, you know, breaking down to our terms, he's saying the way he got sentenced, the way his case went, the terms he got and everything that went along with it, you wouldn't have gotten what he got if he snitched. Period. That's that. And he even gonna get into, hey, I'm finna let him cook, man. Get your popcorn. Let me know what you think, man. Drop some in the comments. It's just crazy how they see it more than our people see it. It's like for some reason, you know, because you know, I can't say if 50 was jealous or 50 wanted that, you know, who didn't every dude in the street wanted to be Meech and every rapper wanted to be like 50. Some people wanted to be both. You feel what I'm saying? And people can't believe this man made this much money, did what he did, and got out when he got out. But most people ain't never been in them situations. That's why you go to people that's been in them situations to break down these situations. You feel what I'm saying? Let me let them cook. My bad.
To appreciate is when a you know, Meech or Demetrius Flannery, because I don't know the man personally, but Flannery was perceived of as the largest African-American trafficker in the United States.
The biggest, the largest.
They're not going to give a trafficker at that level a time cut because somebody a fraction of his size gets knocked off. Like
now he finna go into the Cuff situation. Because remember, Cuffy was saying he finna break down the whole Suarez, Tammy. He finna put your man Cuff under the bus. It's gonna have to, once this get out, if it get out, y'all come to my channel, man. Shout to them, yo. You know what I'm saying? I need to talk to these brothers, but shout to if once this get out, somebody gonna have some explaining to do.
John Gotti doesn't get a time cut for giving up the driver.
Facts.
Like, what are we even talking about here? Cuffy got charged literally in February 2013, the first transaction, which is where's the date? I got it right here for you. The early transaction is the February 5th through February 7th transaction. It's 2 kilos. It's 2 rat-ass kilos. You're not giving a drug kingpin a sentence reduction because some guy got knocked off with 2 keys that he didn't even pay for. It was a reverse thing. He got it on the cuff from the cops.
Mm.
So they receive no money, no assets. They set the guy up with their own product. And you think they're going to give the biggest African-American drug trafficker a sentence reduction because some guy got knocked off with 2 rat-ass keys?
The biggest, which leads to the point of what I was saying about, do y'all think somebody wasn't going to pick, he's the biggest, considered the biggest African-American trafficker, bro. That's why everybody talking about this, bro. And the fact to see that he can have a chance at redemption and somebody standing in the way of that because of a picture. Hey, man, this will let you know who really street. Some dudes ain't as street as they think because they ain't been as far in the streets, you know, to make judgment on guys who've been further and went through more, you know. So sometimes you got to just hear the whole story.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
And then 10 days later, the second reverse sting, because after the authorities busted Cuffy's driver with the 2 keys that the authorities had set him up with, the authorities then go to Cuffy and say, hey, you owe us for those 2 keys. He didn't have the money to pay for it. So then he was able to persuade them to say, okay, well, you know what? We'll sell you another 15 keys. Like, who does this? Nobody in the actual trafficking world does this silliness.
Silly.
The guy's already told you he can't pay for the 2. Why is anybody going to give him 15? Why would he fall for this nonsense? And so then,
and right there with what he just said, those numbers he talking about, a lot of the YouTubers, a lot of the dudes, even some of these other dudes, even some of the white dudes that's in the world, that you could tell who been through it and who lived them lives, man, because a lot of dudes is talking on numbers and they don't even know what these numbers carries, how these situations go down, and they trying to say, come on, man, the dude made, understand they was 750 million was what they said they had. They split it down the middle with him and Terry. So the man touched 350 million, however it went. You feel what I'm saying? And to say that 50 of them don't, so it's kind of like they trying, you can't erase the man's legacy. It is what it is.
then when he gets knocked off for the 15, it's a total of 2 keys here, 15 keys there. There is no way in hell the federal government is going to give a sentence reduction to the largest African-American drug trafficker because some guy got knocked off with 2 rat-ass keys over here and 15 rat-ass keys over there. That's just not happening.
Made you wait. And people, you know, I'm not downplaying what MEECH was able to accomplish in.
It's just crazy how they look at what we think is big money. They look at it like, come on, man, y'all not even really playing with nothing, y'all, but that's another story.
Atlanta, from Detroit to Atlanta. Like, yes, he was big for the city. I think you said 150 keys a week was what they were moving at their height.
He said, according to the DOJ, it was 100 to 150 keys every 10 days.
Every 10 days. Okay, so every 10 days, 100 to 150 keys. Now that's a lot of product for the average person to think about.
He had to think about like that. That is a lot of work, though.
But one of the biggest things that you and I have had, you know, taking issues with, when people talk, everybody that seems to be Mexican is automatically cartel. They just classify them as cartel.
They think
on the cartel level, that is peanuts. That is nothing.
Yeah, they wouldn't do a transaction at 100 keys. Yeah, maybe 100, maybe 150 keys if your cousin's married to somebody, or you know, they're going to go out of their way to throw a little bit of consideration. 150 is not a lot of product. And so what is characterized as large scale is large scale by American standards.
Correct.
Or hood standards.
Not by the guys that are bringing in 12 to 15 to 20 metric tons every 3 to 4 weeks. They're moving 20,000 units. There was one guy in LA who in 2 months sold more product than BMF did in 13 years.
Did you hear what he just said? 2 months. And BMF was the biggest thing most dudes on the streets ever seen. And my point was to that point right there. His people out there moving what they do, what MEECH'S did in 2 months. And they did it in years, which shows the level of the game we get, how small we are on this thing, and the penitentiary chances we take. And the crumbs, we getting the crumbs off the table. We turning them into something, but is the risk worth the reward at the end of the day? You know what I'm saying? Unless you did it how MEECH'S did it and could live off of your story. And most of them can't live off of 8-ball. He was the best 8-ball seller in the, you know.
Well,
Right.
that's high-level trafficking. Meech was a very substantial trafficker for what are essentially smaller markets. Detroit's not a big market. It's a mid-sized market. It's nothing. St. Louis? Los Angeles has got 30 times the population. The greater LA area is 30 times bigger than St. Louis.
Yeah. And when we say this, we're not downplaying whatever credit they had in the street. That's not what this is about. Because I understand Cuffy was a guy in the streets and he might have been a player in St. Louis. But folks, there's a reason why the Rams left St. Louis and went to LA. It's a smaller market. You take that big player in a smaller market and you stick him in LA and nobody even talks to him.
Men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
They wouldn't even talk to him. They wouldn't even talk to Meech. The guy Meech was talking to, it was at least 2, if not 3 degrees of separation away from an actual cartel guy.
Suarez.
You know, the individual that Cuffy was talking about, he calls him a Mexican. My mom's Chihuahua was more of a cartel guy than whoever Cuffy was talking to. Like, come on, man. It's just getting silly. Like, once you actually dive into the facts, there's no way in hell the government would have agreed or even contemplated a sentence reduction for someone at MEECH'S level, who admittedly was a large-scale American trafficker, on the basis of somebody getting knocked off with, 2 keys here, 15 keys there. That's laughable.
Mm-hmm. And I think the really crazy part is it seems like so many people all put Big Meech on a pedestal because he didn't take a deal. He took the 30 years, at least at the time, like we've explained, some years have been coming off for different things. But, everybody put him on this pedestal as a stand-up guy. And now he comes out and you have 50 Cent that's putting this whole thing into motion. Now all of a sudden it seems like everybody wants him to be a cooperator or a rat, because these people that talk on these TikTok pages and on these, like you and I have shared things back and forth for the last week since that video of ours, done fairly well, at least for my channel. And people aren't reading from court documents. People aren't reading from anything factual. They're just saying.
They understand when they say people, they talking about the black, the hood YouTubers. Yeah, Cuffy this, he a snitch. 50 said this. What they showing, they looking at us like, man, we gullible. Y'all follow whoever and you ride whoever just because 50 said. And that's what I'm trying to tell y'all. It was something about that just, and being from the Midwest, we couldn't just go down, let Meech go down like that. Now, hey, ain't nobody, hey, they do what they do. But you know what I'm saying? 50 could have been intimidated that Meech was going to come out and kind of take and it's crazy though, but we the ones that put that jacket on the man. And because of his situation, he can't speak and defend himself like he really want to. You feel me? So
saying stuff that doesn't even agree. Like I had so many people say that he got out because of the FSA, the First Step Back, when that's not why he got out. I have so many people say, what about the 5K letter? There was no 5K letter. Like there's so many misconceptions about why he was out.
He did get an accelerated release under the FSA.
Yeah.
Because he got an additional year knocked off and he received an extended halfway house placement. But that in no way implies that the guy cooperated. That's just everybody all eligible prisoners received that time cut, as long as you didn't do something stupid in prison.
And like you said, too, a lot of times when Meech was definitely what I would consider a big fish for the government. They were going after Atlanta. I'm not downplaying what he was able to accomplish. He was definitely a big fish. But like you stated earlier, you're not going to get a time reduction for giving out someone smaller or even the same or maybe even slightly above. You got to give away the guy that's doing the metric tons deal you were talking about earlier to get a time cut.
Yeah. Well, look, Cuffy may very well have been a large trafficker, but not on the basis of the charges.
Correct.
The same thing with this guy Suarez. Everyone's making him sound like he's cartel. Well, I actually pulled the papers on it. Suarez got knocked off for a 3-kilo deal. Like he met Meech in jail after a 3-kilo transaction.
And if Cuffy, not, like you say, not taking nothing from the man, but this is to the people. Y'all got to ask yourself. If Cuff said he was the first one to put $1 million in Meech's hand. Well, so that means if you was more like a plug than Meech, or just as much as a plug with Meech, why did you have to reach out to Meech in jail while he locked up to find you a plug? That didn't sound right to anybody that hustle and really get money. You gotta call there for a plug. You couldn't. Ain't nobody in the free world messing with you. No, you don't know your own cartel dudes.
Like, again, Suarez isn't cartel, and he beat that trial. He beat that case at trial. 4 years later, he's under investigation for 1 pound of meth, 3 keys of coke, 1 pound of meth. Come on, man. These guys, look, they're traffickers. They're not cartel level operators. So when Cuffy says Meech was setting up Suarez, the government's not going to give Meech a time cut for a guy got caught with $57,000 in cash. That's absurd.
And this is a white dude trying to understand, why do the brothers hate on each other so much? That's really what he asked himself. Like, damn, why they hating on the man if they so gangster and they understand the streets, and y'all know this paperwork like y'all saying y'all know it, and everybody been locked up and know this and been that, but I'm sure a lot of y'all ain't been locked up for nothing with them numbers. So he just saying, why they trying to put that on him like that, bro? Why they trying to put that on him like that? Because he said Cuff and the dude who he set up the deal with wouldn't even want enough to get him what y'all saying he should have got.
Just the love for 50 Cent, because largely whenever that man's had a problem with somebody, the masses have backed 50 for whatever, you know. Oh, I don't like Ja Rule. I don't like him either. I don't like
him. Sound like he's cartel. Well, I actually pulled the papers on it. Suarez got knocked off. Give Meech a time cut for a guy got caught with $57,000 in cash. That's absurd.
See, when you break it down and you put those numbers out there, it makes me wonder why people want to put that on him so bad. And I don't know if it's just the love for 50 Cent, because largely whenever that man's had a problem with somebody, the masses have backed 50 for whatever, you know. Oh, I don't like Ja Rule. I don't like him either. I don't like this person. I don't like him either. And it seems like that's kind of started to be in the case with Meech. And this is a problem that you and we mentioned last time. And I feel it's fair that we kind of dive deeper into it. Because people are slowly but surely getting the information, the masses that have put out all this BS rhetoric, messages and voices like ours are being heard little bit by little bit. Once the truth finally comes out, a lot of these people could have a day in court with Meech if he chooses to go that route, because they are really.
Now they've been let you know how he should play it. Understand? So all y'all that was saying this and saying that, your man Sean, you know what I'm saying? Hey, dog, get y'all money up there, dog. Sean, I mean, y'all got y'all. I ain't got no dog face from Detroit, so you know he got the right to speak and say how he feel, because that's his city. Somebody from his city, you know what I'm saying? He was knee deep in them trenches. So, but the Sean G guy, whoever paperwork ain't lining up, if Meech want to go this route right here that they about to explain, y'all better lawyer up.
Slandering that man's name, they're basically slandering his legacy, and it could hurt him for future endeavors.
Well, look, in the United States, we all have a First Amendment right to speech. However, no one has a right to ignore objectively verifiable facts and then construct a alternative version of events while ignoring objectively verifiable facts and taking those false factual premises and attacking the property of another individual. Now, MEECH'S reputation has an intangible value in the tens of millions of dollars. Well, if you are ignoring facts and then creating this version of events that didn't happen to now undermine the commercial value of that property, there's a very good chance he's going to start seeing a lot of people in court. Remember, Meech is still in prison. And what people don't understand, and from reading everything, I can confidently state that what Meech did is he was hooking up Suarez, a small-time trafficker from California, who was an actual Mexican national, obviously not cartel, but a Mexican national, hooking him up with Cuffy. And so, and it's reasonable to infer that he was going to get a piece of the action. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, and that's what he was in jail for, was trafficking.
He can't say that today.
Right.
Not that he's going to get prosecuted because it was 13 years ago. He's still technically in federal prison. If he
Bam, that's why he ain't answering. That's why he's not saying nothing. That's why he's not responding. 50 could keep coming at him that he ain't, he can't say nothing because he can't really explain, yo, man, I just tried to catch a lick. That was it.
he goes on publicly and says, hey, look, I wasn't setting the guy up. I was hooking up a dope deal. The BOP just pulls him right back into custody. They'll give him a 100 series shot, take away all his good time, take away his FSA year off, take away his extended halfway house placement. If he defends himself today, he gets himself back into prison for 2.5 years. Now, next January 27th, he gets released. On the 28th, he can hold a press conference and say, yes, I put together these guys to do a dope deal, and the Bureau can't take back the time. It vested. So between now and the 28th, he just has to just ignore all of this drama. And I have no doubt that if Flannery's as smart as presumably he is, he's probably talking to intellectual property attorneys right now. Because there are a number of individuals that have taken positions that are in complete contradiction of objectively verifiable facts. And that's something that you can't do, not if you have any assets. Now, if you're just some broke dick joker running his mouth, okay, no problem. No one's going to sue you.
Yeah, some of us that's just on here trying to eat, they ain't tripping off us. But all y'all big dogs out there that's talking there, y'all better watch what you say.
But if you have property or if you have a successful business or if you have a house, car, boat, assets, oh, he's coming. Because if he had my intellectual property attorney, if he had my guy, he'd be taking him for every cent they got.
Or if you produce TV shows with your likeness.
Oh, 50 Cent is different. See, people don't understand and they underestimate this man. He's very intelligent because in the United States, you have to be able to show damages in order to bring a cause of action. Obviously, 50 Cent had nothing to do with this concert getting canceled. I don't believe that for a moment. However, the moment the concert was canceled, if Meech believed 50 Cent had anything to do with that getting canceled, he could sue him. I keep hearing these guys talking on like TikTok, so 50 Cent is going to burn everything on down. No, he never would. That's tortious interference with the guy's business opportunities. You can spin out a half a dozen cause of actions on doing something like that. And so the moment the concert got canceled, what did 50 Cent immediately do? He issued a statement saying, stop calling me. I had nothing to do with that.
Facts. I remember that. Drop some in the comments.
That was a categorical denial. He disavowed any intent to harm this man financially. And he made it clear by implication, do not imply that my trolling him contributed to him losing money. Because if 50 Cent actually caused him to lose that concert,
he's liable.
He's liable. And so
Meech might get some money after all.
So the people that prepared that statement didn't prepare it for the YouTubing community, didn't prepare it for the viewers. They prepared it for the judge next year in case Flannery prosecutes him. If he files a civil action, now he can come up and say, hold on a second, at the very first practicable moment, he immediately issued a statement with a categorical denial, and he disavowed any intent or implication. Well, those are all elements of a defense. Most people think, 50 is just trolling. He did that. No, 50 is a man who's worth millions. Presumably his company's worth tens of millions of dollars. He's a very intelligent businessman, and he's being advised by very good lawyers. Other people are ignoring
it's a business plan.
What 50 did, or they don't appreciate the implications of his move. And they're keeping on repeating the same false scenario that's completely divorced from reality and repeatedly slandering Meech.
So 50 put it out there, like they say, small, he playing chess. So since he saw he wasn't going to do BMF because of what he was already going through with stars, and he got pissed about the picture. So like I said, it sounded like a business deal went bad. He tried to put some money out there. If Meech wanted some money, he didn't want to give him none. So he tried to go out with the Ross thing. From what he's saying, it seems like 50 knew that. And he put that narrative out there, but then backtracked it with the statement saying, hey, I ain't do that just in case he tried to sue him for putting the narrative out. Now, at this point, he just trolling for whatever reason.
And what's shocking is look, you got a number of podcast hosts. They're doing it on video.
A great number of videos.
These are, just slam. I mean,
like great number. We just following suit. Come on, y'all. Y'all got to be more. Do your homework.
I did a quick survey, probably about 30 minutes, where I was just scrolling. I stopped counting at 20 guys who were completely liable for their actions, for their statements. And that doesn't include that. That doesn't even include the guests.
Right.
So he's going to be able to sue the host, the podcast companies, the guests. Because when you ignore facts, so for instance, what's an example of an objectively verifiable fact? Okay, Ms. Collins, entered into a cooperation agreement with the DEA. She was a civilian. She wasn't earning any time off of any beef that she was trying to work off. So she's what's technically referred to as an asset who's being compensated. So now the claim is that she entered into a third-party cooperation agreement. Well, in the third-party agreement, the beneficiary is the third party. In this case, Demetrius Flannery, assuming the theory was correct. It couldn't have been correct, however, because from the very inception, she was receiving financial compensation. Mm-hmm. Well, when a party enters into an agreement and receives compensation under that agreement, it's a first-party agreement. It's not a third-party agreement.
Meech situation.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a little.
Well, for their actions, for their statements. And
hold on.
Presumably his company's worth tens of millions of dollars. We're
gonna go for right.
And that doesn't include that. That doesn't even include the guests.
Right.
So he's going to be able to sue the host, the podcast companies, the guests. Because when you ignore facts, so for instance, what's an example of an objectively verifiable fact? Okay, Ms. Collins, entered into a cooperation agreement with the DEA. She was a civilian. She wasn't earning any time off of any beef that she was trying to work off. So she's what's technically referred to as an asset who's being compensated. So now the claim is that she entered into a third-party cooperation agreement. Well, in the third-party agreement, the beneficiary is the third party. In this case, Demetrius Flannery, assuming the theory was correct. It couldn't have been correct, however, because from the very inception, she was receiving financial compensation. Mm-hmm. Well, when a party enters into an agreement and receives compensation under that agreement, it's a first-party agreement. It's not a third-party agreement.
So the whole third-party agreement thing is out the window, bro. That means now Cuff probably saying what he thought. I get it. So something happened. You like, man, it had to be you. It had to be you. But he ended up saying that out loud. And people ran with it. And the man just said right there, if she got money, whoever pay you the money, that's a first-party agreement. So whatever she doing with that situation on paper is considered first party. Ain't even no third party in the play.
Agreement could have never contemplated Meech getting any time cut because she was getting paid from the very first month.
And you can't have both.
You can't have both.
It's one or the other.
And so for her, look, she ended up getting a monthly stipend of $3,000 a month. She gets a lump sum payment of $80,000 a month. She got money for her to move to a new place. So she gets another $24,000 to facilitate her move. And then the DEA even reimbursed her for the cost of a new car.
Damn, I see why they snitching out there. They take care of, man.
She's 200 G's into this operation. Well, how in the hell are you anybody characterizing an agreement where the woman gets $200,000 as third party?
Yeah, that definitely sounds.
That's just him shitting on all these jailhouse, these YouTube lawyers saying, if you know the law, like my man saying, that can't even be considered what you calling it. We just calling it something because you heard somebody else say it.
Sounds like some first party action.
You can, and every podcast host and every commentator knows that she got paid. So in order for you to characterize it as a third-party agreement, you are willfully ignoring those facts. And now you're going to call it something that it clearly isn't to undermine.
We are showing our ignorance and how we follow suit and how Dick Riley. Understand this, man.
The commercial value of this guy's intangible asset? Oh, hell, you can't do that. Not if you got money.
And Tammy, when she cooperated against Terry White, which was the first, I guess, on record cooperation that she had, she wasn't even paid for that originally. They wound up giving her, I think, 45 or 55,000 after the fact. That was Mr. Harvey. Then he retired. Then Cromer reaches out and, brokers that deal with her. And that's supposedly, and you might know more specifically, that's where when he's talking to her about what kind of deal they're going to work out, she even says, what about getting Meech a time cut? And he said, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, we've already discussed the nature of the agreement. This is another one of the talking points I had. I call this the sequence of events.
Right.
Because she enters into a cooperation agreement with the DEA in 2009 with respect to a gentleman named Terry White.
Correct.
Apparently, Mr. White was involved in some criminal activity and he had used her bank accounts to surface capital. Mm-hmm. And she cooperated with the authorities. So basically, she's just a civilian, maybe a little bit of a do-gooder. Because Agent Harvey testified.
So the Terry White got it. Everybody said she sent to jail. He did something with her info and got her caught up and pulled in it. So that's why she did that to him, because he burnt her with her. He stole from her. All right, here we go.
In one of the hearings where he's like, hey, look, she was a very unusual witness in that she was doing it because she just wanted to do the right thing. Like most people in those circumstances are cooperating for their own self-interest. She didn't do so. So that cooperation in 2009 resulted in Terry White getting prosecuted in 2010, getting sentenced in 2011. Well, in June of 2011, the DEA closed her as an informant. Her relationship was officially ended. In July of 2011, a month later, DEA agent Harvey, her handler, retires. So she's closed as an informant in June. Her handler's retired in July. She's got no further contact with the DEA whatsoever. In August, she gets a call out of the blue. This is the contact that she receives from Agent Cromer, excuse me. This is another one of the objectively verifiable facts people are ignoring, because later on it came to light that Cromer had been paying a woman that he was actually having an affair with. This became the subject of an investigation by the Office of Professional Responsibility. Well, they had to reconstruct the timeline of events. Well, they obtained the phone records. So they had the records closing her as an informant in June, Harvey retiring in July, and then Cromer, calling her out of the blue in August. Well, people are saying she was working at MEECH'S direction. Well, she would have had to have been the one to have initiated the contact if she was doing it at MEECH'S behest. Mm-hmm. The fact that the phone records proved that she got called out of the blue by someone she'd never heard of before meant this wasn't coordinated. She's just going about her business. She's at work one day, she gets a call. And so the guy reaches out there and says, hey, you did a great job working with Harvey a couple of months ago on that other case. We'd like to reopen you up. And that's when she comes back, according to the transcripts.
So snitches get reopened up once they put one away, get their money and chill. If they want to call you back, like, yo, let's get it again. Hey, man, that's a cold game.
And says, hey, look, she's saying, I'm not a criminal. I don't have any contacts. And he's like, well, we're not going to use you in that capacity. We're going to use you to facilitate the investigations. See, what most people don't understand is it is common tactics for females who are not involved in criminal activity to be the ones who move the money. Mm-hmm. That happened numerous times in my case, where we were getting product from Vancouver and we would have the money go from LA up to Vancouver. And it was literally a woman in her mid-50s, 54, 55, 56-year-old Caucasian woman driving a Volkswagen station wagon. Not a Volkswagen, excuse me, a Volvo station wagon.
Yeah.
And so when a highway patrol officer drives by her, he's not looking at her thinking she's transporting product. She's in a Volvo station wagon, she's somebody's grandmother. The cars will be filled with presents. She's driving up to Seattle to see her grandkids in case she did get pulled over. All the cover, we had the hidden compartments in the vehicle. Mm-hmm. Well, that's standard operating procedure. And so when Cromer reaches out to her and says, hey, we're targeting Hispanics, and we need you to move the money. Well, that's consistent with how the DEA would put together one of those operations, because what the actual Hispanics, the big boys, would be doing, they wouldn't have no Latinos handling that money. They want someone like her. And so they actually used her in several different investigations. But the important point is when he makes this pitch to her, he said, and if we take down anybody big, he says, you'll get a lot of money. And now she says during that first phone call, which was completely out of the blue, which means she hadn't discussed it with Meech. She, during that first phone call, says, well, can I get Demetrius Flannery a time cut?
Bam. That's the whole way with her and Meech. She brought Meech in it off another situation. They come to reopen her up as an informant because she shot out over Meech. You know what I'm saying? She like, well, damn, can I get him out? Because she still want to get that movie. So she, hey, if I do that, can y'all get my man now? That's basically how Meech got brought into it. Proceed.
Now, the DEA agent says, well, we'll have to see about working on that.
Right.
Now, that's significant because the DEA agent has no authority to enter into a cooperation agreement where the beneficiary is a prisoner. See, Flannery was in the custody of the Bureau of Prisons in conjunction with an order issued by the judge. The only party that can agree to a third-party agreement on behalf of Meech would be the U.S. Attorney's Office in Detroit. So when she asks the DEA agent in Atlanta, he can't give her a yes or no answer. He had to buy for time. He got off the phone with her. He had to have called the Detroit people and say, hey, are you willing to give this guy Flannery time cut? We have a prospective cooperator. She expressed an interest in helping, but she wants to get him a reduction. Well, obviously, the U.S. Attorney's Office had to have said no. Mm-hmm. They're not going to give the biggest guy they ever prosecuted a time cut. There was nothing that Gotti could have gotten or nothing that Chapo could have done. Once you're at that level, you're not receiving any consideration. And so when the DEA agent contacts her back, now we don't know exactly what transpired between the DEA and the U.S. Attorney's Office, but we can infer it was a no because right after that, she enters into the agreement where she gets paid the $200,000.
Yep.
So the fact that she entered into an agreement where she was getting paid meant that her counter
200,000 for her to jump back in. Damn, shit. She can't stop telling. It's hard to shut up. You throwing a motherfucking 200,000.
Proposal.
Didn't work.
Government offered her an opportunity to make money. She proposed as an alternative compensation scheme, a reduction for Meech. He can't commit to that. The next time he talks to her, they enter into the agreement where she starts getting paid cash. So obviously he contacted the U.S. Attorney's Office. That got rejected. So then he reached back to her and said, hey, look, the best we can do is pay you. So she took the money.
And let's not forget, too, they're not going to be so willing to throw time. This is a guy that was buying billboards on the side of the road saying BMF, basically flaunting what you're doing in front of the whole damn city. Like, that is a big FU. He was like John Gotti going on Time Magazine saying he's proud to be a gangster. When you do that, yeah, there's a certain bravado that comes with that. But there also is a target that comes with that.
Certainly. And it would have to have been an enormously significant target who was significantly larger than Meech. And Suarez is not the guy.
Yeah.
Because when Meech met Suarez, he was in jail for some 3 rat-ass keys.
Well, that is an important factor right there. And I've done a show with our mutual friend, Matt Cox, and really drove that home because everybody wants to say, well, you know, he set it up. He got the time cut. He can't. That's what we're trying to say is hypothetically, if he did set it up, if he did say, hey, get me a time cut, Tammy, do whatever you can do. If she gets anything, money or whatever, then that deal is off the table. You can't, like you said, you can't have both.
That's right. No, that's 100% correct. Also, you have to understand, if he was driving it from prison, encouraging her to do so, she would have contacted the DEA.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people are ignoring the fact that the contact was initiated by the authorities. So that it wasn't some scheme she hatched with Meech.
And another question that I hear quite a bit is, why would he deal with someone that was doing all that? I'm not going to dive too much into the Terry White situation because I don't want to get off track of what we're going on here. Who knows if Meech knew that she was doing that? I mean, obviously, like you said, if you put it together, I'm sure, facilitated the meet between Cuffy and Suarez for some sort of compensation. He can't say that, not right now, like you said, and who knows if he ever will say it. But odds are, yes, he probably put them two together in some fashion. Now, what do you think, in your opinion, did he know about her dealings with Agent Cromer, if any at all?
I don't think he knew anything. And the one fact that we can infer that from, or the circumstances we can, is because once the documents were made public, with Cuffy's filing implying that she was involved in cooperating, what was her initial reaction? She ran to the prison where MEECH'S was being housed at.
Yep.
She wanted to get to him before he heard about it from anybody else, so she could try to explain it away or water it down.
Stick with me.
When he comes back with, hey, just keep my name out of this.
Yeah.
Everybody saying he like, oh, I know about it. Keep my name out. Like, don't put. He's saying, what? Man, don't put my name in that. I don't want to hear nothing about nothing. So Meech more so on, hey, I set up the lick, but I ain't know you was on that. But hell, he probably done already sold his rights by this time. So he kind of like, yo, just don't just, hey, hey, I feel him like I ain't got nothing to say about nothing.
Not my name off the paperwork. That wasn't what was said. Keep my name out. Yes.
Because she's saying, hey, I introduced Cuffy to Suarez. Meech knows he's right in the middle. And see, and what people don't appreciate is the fact that on August 5th, that transaction occurred. You know, Cuffy, Suarez sent several kilos of cocaine to Cuffy in St. Louis. Well, the product arrived on August 5th. Suarez called Tammy Cowens, not because Tammy Cowens was going to cooperate or anything. He was looking for Cuffy. She didn't pick up the phone and call the DEA to report the information. It was just bad luck for Cuffy in that the man she's sleeping with happens to be a DEA agent. So when Suarez calls, this guy's hanging out with her at her place. She's making spaghetti. So when she answers the phone, he hears the conversation on her phone. There's not a call from her to the agent. He was present. So she wasn't even trying to get Cuffy busted.
Yeah.
It was just pure bad luck. The first time Suarez called her, literally, like they were in the car together. Well, it just so happened that she's hanging out with her boyfriend in the car. From the circumstances, it looked like she may have just got through blowing him. They're in the car talking. The phone rings. She answers it. It's Suarez. Well, the guy's sitting in the front seat with her. She didn't report him by picking up the phone and calling. The agent heard Suarez talking to her. And then a few weeks later, the agent hears Suarez again talking to her saying, hey, the truck's up in St. Louis. Where's Cuffy? So now, of course, she is working for the DEA. The agent said, hey, call this guy Cuffy. Boom. Now the agent calls St. Louis. Well, had Agent Cromer not been sleeping with Tammy Cowens, none of these guys would have gotten busted.
Yeah. We're not
All this because of some bad luck.
even having this conversation. Well, I mean, I don't know the way things are going with Cuffy. I think he'd have got busted eventually, but we're not having that conversation about this.
That's right. It's an unfortunate set of
Was hot.
circumstances where Meech went out of his way to help Cuffy obtain a plug out in Cali.
And again, we want to reference in the documents is listed that CS2 is the one that sent Cuffy to deal with who he says cartel, but is not even cartel, not in the least. It's an undercover agent. But CS2, we don't know the identity other than the fact that it is a female.
Well, here's the circumstances.
Now, remind you, a lot of YouTubers was trying to say Meech was CS2. What's the other form of CS2? All right. That's crazy.
Suarez calls Tammy. Tammy contacts Cuffy on August 5th. Cuffy gets the coke. He actually obtained the product. A few days later, Suarez is calling Tammy saying, hey, where is this guy? He never paid for the material. He ripped off the connection. So Meech hooks Cuffy up with the guy from Cali. The guy from Cali comes through with the product, drops off the material. Cuffy rips the guy off. She knows that he ripped him off because Suarez is bombarding her saying, hey, what's going on? Tell your buddy Meech the guy's no good. He's not paying. This happens in August. In November, Cuffy calls her again and saying, hey, I need a plug. Well, what does she do? She already knows he ripped off the last guy.
Cuff called
She has
back.
nothing to do with this guy. So she calls the DEA agent and says, hey, that guy in St. Louis that ripped off the guy from California, he's looking for a new connect, but I don't want nothing to do with him. So the DEA agent says, okay, well then we'll introduce him to another informant. That's CS2. So now Cuffy comes, meets with Tammy. Tammy introduces CS2 to Cuffy. CS2, the second informant, introduces Cuffy to the undercover DEA agent out of Memphis. So this is another point of confusion where I think I've heard numerous people saying that, well, the Mexican that Meech hooked Cuffy up with set him up. No. The Mexican that Meech introduced to Cuffy is the guy that Cuffy ripped off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, man. So y'all let me know what you think, man. Drop something in the comments, man. So the moral of this story right here, man, is this. Never believe all of what you hear. Get your facts first. And understand, people, GoFundMe is not life insurance. And dick riding is not a form of transportation. It will get you nowhere. You know what I'm saying? So for all y'all that tap back in and once this, let me know what you think. Drop something in the comments, man. But it sounds like to me, it's going to be some suing and apologizing going on, man. It's your man, Mouse E219 teaming over here, man. The transition, one of the biggest transitions is humiliation, ego, and realizing when, everything ain't what it seems. Don't judge a book by a cover. Definitely don't go off of what somebody else say. Do your research, do your homework, no matter what it is, man. And just know, all these fellas in the streets, we the most in the streets and know the least amount of laws. That's what this video showed me. As many of us in the streets, we don't know shit. We think we know. We think we know, bro. And we talk that talk, and this shows them, man, we doing a lot of talking, man. But we need to do a little more listening and a little more investigate. But it's what you know. Hey, man, it's your man, Mouse E219 TV, man. Hey, man, and me from the Midwest. So as of right now, we still team Meech from the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? Drop something in the comments, man. Let me know what you think, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey.